Today we'll be tearing apart a 1986 Moto 4 225. A lot of these parts are going to be the same as a 200 Tri Moto or a 225 Tri Moto. The 225 Moto 4 has dual range. It's got the shifter right here. I don't think any of the Tri Motos have that. This is shaft drive. Some of the Tri Motos are shaft drive, some are chain drive. So there'll be a couple different parts in here. We're going to start by taking off the head. Use a 12mm socket to pull these head bolts. 4 of these longer ones here, and then we'll take off the cam chain tensioner to take some of that pressure off of that cam chain. And here's the tensioner here. We'll pull this boot so you can see this tensioner a little bit better. But we've got a lot of 5mm Allen bolts on this motor. And this boot here, the intake boot, carburetor sits here. Majority of these crack at some point. And a lot of times you look in the boot and you can't see a crack on the inside, but what that does is let air through and then it'll find a place to get in. So there's metal kind of going halfway on this boot here and on the other half as well, but then there's rubber in the middle to let that flex a little bit, and that'll crack and leak right there. So here's the tensioner, and we'll pull 2 5mm Allen bolts there. Take them out kind of evenly because this is spring loaded. This will take the tension off of that cam chain that runs through here, through the head. Tri Motos will have a pull starter here. This just has a cover. There's a cam chain tensioner there. Pull these bolts here. They're your Phillips heads on the cam sprocket. Alright, and then down in there you can see the cam sprocket there, held on by a 17mm bolt. That cam sprocket. That cam chain is now loose. Pull that 17mm headed bolt. And there's your sprocket there. I just let that chain drop down in there because we're going to end up taking that whole motor apart. We've got 5mm Allen bolts holding all these covers on, which to pull the head you don't actually have to take those covers off. We're going to now take this dual range shifter off, and that's just so we can get to this head easier. So we've got 3 Allen bolts by the shift handle itself. Loose. You can adjust your shifter here, so if it's not fully engaging, you can make that shaft longer or shorter, whatever you need to do to make adjustment there. And then see this here, we'll pull this arm off here, and you can take this rod off either place. Behind it, just take the rod off, or you can take the arm off, but we'll take the arm off with the 10mm socket. There is a shaft now, or the shifter. Now on this one, you can see it's spring loaded, and that'll allow it to change. It'll drop down into place here, and there's knobs right there that allow you from being able to shift it on the fly. You want to make sure you're stopped before you flip that. Now the shifter is here, and we'll pull this off. Alright, to finish pulling this head, we've got a couple more Allens here on top. 6mm Allens, so a little bit bigger than the other ones. And these will be torqued down when you're going back together. I don't like using impacts on these because a lot of times that impact will spin too fast and there's not enough surface area for that Allen to connect well, and it'll end up rounding these off, and they're difficult to get off without that head ready to come off. You just kind of give it a tap, it should just kind of wobble out of there. There's the head there, you got the 2 valves, you got your head gasket here, your camshaft is there. Now to pull the camshaft, 2 10mm bolts, and then this will just slide out. You'll have to turn it kind of back and forth to get it around these rockers, and then that cam will be able to come out. You got your piston here. Here's one of your tensioners. Here's the other one. This one we'll have to take off once we get this stator removed. I'll try to remove this speedometer housing here. You can see it's 3 Phillips head screws to remove the whole housing. Now if you just want to remove the cable, you can loosen this Phillips head and pull this cable out this way. If you're wanting to replace this case piece here as well, just pull this Phillips head and pull the case and the cable together. This one we might, just to see if this cable's good, pull it loose here and then wiggle this cable out. That's what it'll look like. This cable looks good. And you can spin it. It's a steel cable. And you should be able to spin that and it'll spin all the way through. Alright, and then we'll take this case off. You can see this here. This cable spins all the way through and should be able to spin very freely. If you wind these cables up too tight, it'll actually kink that metal in there, but this is fine here. It'll still spin there even. Now we'll pull this housing. A lot of the Tri Motos won't have this speedometer assembly here.